Hi friends, Rabbi Jenny Solomon in Raleigh, North Carolina from Beth Meyer Synagogue. Here with a mincha moment. If the last couple of days and even weeks have taught me anything or reminded me of anything, it's the truth of uncertainty, of knowing that any sense that things are permanent or fixed or that we can predict them in their fullness is an illusion. I'm remembering back a couple months ago when we had our annual meeting and we so jubilantly announced to the congregation that we anticipated that we would all be back in our regular seats for the High Holy Days. A couple of months ago, we had such a different sense about what might have been the public health reality of this moment. So, alas, we will be in person these High Holy Days, but we will be in masks, and we understand that many of you will choose to join us remotely, and we bless you in whatever decisions feel right for you. But I want to get back to that spiritual core of uncertainty. The reality is that all things are temporary, life itself chief among them. And I want to think about that there's a natural urge when we consider and we sort of attune ourselves to that truth to sort of clench and figure out how we can regain control. So when we sense that life and the world are fleeting and are fragile and uncertain, it's a very natural instinct to think consciously or unconsciously again, how can I control the situation? But I think that our spiritual practice actually invites us to ask a different question. And that question is, how am I relating to uncertainty? How am I relating to uncertainty, to the truth that all things are temporary? And I want to suggest that one of the core prayers that we chant during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's a very famous prayer called Unetana Tokef in Hebrew, but most English speakers will recognize the prayer not only by the haunting melody, but by the powerful words, who shall live and who shall die? And every year I am flooded with questions, either before the holiday or in the aftermath of the holiday, or maybe years later as people are still wrestling with that particular prayer. I don't believe in that, or I do believe in that, and it's incredibly harsh. This idea that God would actually have a book, kivyachol, and a pen, and write, you're going to live, you're going to die. This is where you fit into the book of life or the book of death. So I want to publicly put out there that I don't believe this to be literal. I think this is a metaphor. And the metaphor is there to instruct us that life, all things are fleeting, that life is fragile, that we are like a blade of grass withering in the wind, that none of us get out of this life alive, that we always never know. And that same question. So how do we want to relate to that truth? How do we want to relate to that idea that in fact it's uncertain? It's all uncertain. It's not entirely in our control. And our tradition wisely guides us at the very end of the prayer. I think sometimes that people get so caught up in who shall live and who shall die, they forget that the prayer or the poem, if you might want to imagine it as a poem, that's what it is, really an ancient poem. When you arrive at the end of the prayer, we say, Uteshuva, utfila, utstaka, ma'avirin et ro'a hagzera. That tshuva, the work of repentance, of healing, of repair, of growth, that work. And tefillah, the work of heartfelt prayer and spiritual practice. And tzedakah, the work of righteousness, of justice, of repairing the world. When we do all of those things, we are better able to live in a world that is uncertain. We soften the effects, ma'avirin. It's sort of, it's a softening of that harsh reality that not everything is in our control. Not everything can be predetermined or anticipated. So again, I want to encourage us as we prepare for the holidays, as we prepare to close our eyes and to hear those words chanted and to allow them to reverberate in our souls, to remember that the book of life and the book of death is but a metaphor, to remind us that we get to write the next chapter, each one of us. And I think that our tradition teaches us that the wisest way to write the next chapter is in knowing that, in fact, this is all temporary. This is all momentary. This is all uncertain. And when we pursue a path of teshuvah and tefillah and tzedakah, we can relate to that uncertainty with so much more ease and grace and peace and wholeness. So I'm wishing everyone a continued meaningful and robust and introspective period of Elul as we prepare to bring in another year, God willing, a year of health and wholeness for us all. Shalom, peace.